Tonight, more revelations on the 21-story building, Ikoyi building collapse. Death toll rises to 20. Lagos government queries building integrity, also suspends general manager, Lagos State Building Control Agency. President Muhammadu Buhari addresses participants at the Climate Change Summit in Glasgow, Scotland, canvasses financial support for developing countries in achieving global warming goals. Minister of Power Abubakar Aliyu raises hope on more electricity generation for the country, says federal government to inaugurate Zungeru and Kashimbila hydropower projects in December. And the Ethiopian government declares nationwide state of emergency as war intensifies in the country. Plus international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, the Nigeria Investment Promotion Council announces $8.9 billion investment inflow into the country for the third quarter of this year.
On sports news tonight, Tottenham appoint former Chelsea and Inter Milan manager Antonio Conte as their new manager following the sacking of Nuno Espirito Santo after a disastrous 4-month reign.
And from Abuja, anxiety mounts in the University of Abuja as gunmen kidnap 3 lecturers and 3 members of their families.
The death in the building collapse in Lagos is rising. A total of 20 bodies have been recovered and 9 survivors rescued from the site on Gerald Road in Ikoyi. A youth corps member is said to be one of those trapped in the building. This comes as the rescue operations by a combined team of the National Emergency Management Agency officials and the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, as well as security operatives, continue. It may take some time to identify the actual cause of the collapse, but this next report highlights some of the things we know so far about the incident.
High-rise buildings like these ones, being built by 4 homes, comprising 3 blocks of multi-story buildings, are a common sight in highbrow Ikoyi. While some are completed and are already occupied, some others are still under construction. Considering the location of these buildings, not many would exercise any fear about the quality of the buildings. Surprisingly, however, one of the buildings, a 21-story, caved in broad daylight, causing chaos, confusion and anxiety among the residents. Shortly after the collapse, with many people still trapped under the rubble, fire trucks and excavators were deployed in the rescue process. Discussions soon moved to the factors responsible for the collapse. The Lagos State Deputy Governor, who was one of the early callers at the site, announced that although the contractors got approval for a 21-story building, the quality of materials was compromised. An expert in the industry also weighs in on the collapse.
Now, what is happening? I'll tell you just a little history, because the government has a big fault to this. In 1986, the National Building Code was drafted by all the professional bodies in the construction industry, the 7 of them. This National Building Code was not signed until 20 years after it was drafted by the then Minister Mimiko. We're in 2021 today, 15 years after the National Building Code has not been passed by the National Assembly.
As rescue efforts continue, many will be hoping that the government will bring to book those responsible for this latest collapse. Hopefully, that will send a strong warning to anyone undertaking such exercise in the future.
And as rescue operations continue, many are in anguish over the condition of their loved ones trapped in the rubble. Our correspondent, Olu Phillips, who was at the scene earlier today, spoke with a distraught mother.
I have someone sitting next to me, Mrs. Anjori. She's been sitting here since yesterday, and I spotted her and asked her why she looked so despondent, and this is what she has to say to me.
Ọmọ mi Zainab Oyindamola Sanni ó wà nínú building tó collapse n'Ikoyi láti ọ̀sán àná till now wọn ò tí ì rí yọ. Then àwọn workers tó ń yọ wọ́n ti stop iṣẹ́, and my daughter is still there. Lagos State Governor should help me. They should bring my daughter out for me.
So just to help out on the first part of her statement, she's saying to us that her daughter Zainab, right? She's an IT student who's come here to do her IT in terms of construction. And I asked her how did she know her daughter was actually trapped here. She said that her daughter came out for lunch to buy food, and after buying food, she went back in. So the vendors that brought food for them were the ones that told her that they saw her going back in after buying lunch. Right now, her daughter so far is not part of those who have been rescued, and it gives her really deep cut in her heart. And she's asking the government to help her 25-year-old daughter Zainab to at least if she can see her body.
Well, as rescue efforts continue on the collapsed building sites, a letter that has gone viral on social media suggests that there may have been signs that the structure was defective long before construction progressed. Our correspondent Bukola Samuel Wemimo sought answers to questions arising from the information provided in the letter.
While families of the victims mourn the loss of their loved ones, many questions remain unanswered. Questions particularly relating to the structure. Who approved the construction? Who supervised the work? Details of a letter now gone viral on social media, dated 20th of February 2020, addressed to one Mr. Femi Oshibono, and written by Mr. Muritala Olawale of Prowess Engineering Services, suggests that trouble may have been brewing before now. The letter notifies the client of its decision to withdraw its structural consultancy services from the project. The letter reads, quote, "We can guarantee the integrity of the first two buildings and also works done up to the 4th floor of the 3rd building supervised by us, provided specifications have been met in terms of the required concrete strength. This we do not have control over, as we do not have the concrete cube test results for each stage of the building till date." I call the numbers listed in the letter repeatedly.
The number you dialed is switched off.
Channels Television also tried to locate the address of Prowess Engineering Services seen in the letter. Here's what we found. We also visited the office of the Lagos State Building Control Agency with the same objective, but we were told the general manager and communications officer had moved to the site of the collapsed Jared Terraces since the incident occurred. Many more questions come up even now. Who leaked the letter by Prowess Engineering Services notifying Fourscore Limited of its decision to pull out of the Jared Terraces project? How come the address entered for Prowess Engineering Services is not found in GRA as indicated in the letter? Or if it is where it is said to be at number 30A, Ladoke Akintola Street, GRA, why is it yet another construction site? And as relief efforts continue, answers to these questions are sought. It is hoped that the steps taken by the government will go a long way to calm frayed nerves. Bukola Samuel Wemimo, Channels Television News.
What matters enough in this world? You and your God.
Meanwhile, the Lagos State government has suspended the general manager of the Lagos State Building Control Agency, Mr. Bolahan Oki, indefinitely. This is contained in a statement by the State Commissioner for Information, Mr. Gbenga Omotosho, adding that the government is also setting up an independent panel to probe the collapse of the building. According to him, members of the panel will be drawn from the Nigerian Institute of Architects, the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, the Nigeria Society of Engineers, and other professional bodies. The panel's mandate includes investigation of the remote and immediate causes of the collapse and recommendations on how to prevent future occurrence. The statement adds that Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has said the government will surely find out what went wrong and punish those indicted. It says a help desk will be set up at the site for people seeking information about their loved ones who may have been involved in the incident. And while it's a race to find survivors at the story building collapse, which raises loads of concerns, joining us on the news at 10 is engineer Oroluwa Fadayomi. He's the past president of the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers. Welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you.
What do you make of the tragedy of the last 24 hours? What do you think could have gone wrong?
Well, you've called it what it is, a tragedy indeed. And ever since then, most of us have been, those of us in the engineering industry, especially structural engineers, have been so, their mood had been down. When things like this happen, the first question people ask you is, who are the engineers? But before it happens, do they know who the structural engineers are? And these are the things. Because it takes two to tango. Before you say you can put up a building, there are a lot of people that are involved, beginning with the client. And in particular, where the client does not pick his team right, because that's the key thing, then he's already sowing the seed for failure. It's the client that is responsible for picking the consulting team, picking the contractor, picking even those that are doing the soil engineering, the users, and so on and so forth. So it's a large responsibility, and you have government.
Let's situate it to this particular incident. Who takes responsibility? Didn't they see the disaster coming?
Yeah, you see, when you say who takes responsibility, I will say virtually everyone. Because, like I was trying to say, you have the client who plays the major role. And who are the clients? You and I, government, religious bodies, and so on and so forth. And you have organizations, Koren, NISTRUCT, and the people themselves. Each one of us have a role to play. And if, for instance, the government looks the other way when they shouldn't have, then there is a challenge. If the client fails to pick the right team, then there is a challenge. If the consulting engineer, the structural engineer, the architect, if everyone fails to play their role, then there is a challenge. Koren is a regulating body. If they look the other way around, then there is a problem. So the responsibility is all over. But when you look at who in particular, you point at the client, the professional, and the controlling bodies.
Finally, what do you expect will happen to surrounding buildings at the site and, adjacent adjoining buildings with regards to the impact of this crash?
Yeah, you see, when you drop a stone, the impact of that stone is heavy on the ground. It leaves a hole in there. That is just a stone, not to talk of a 20-story building or a 21-story building that falls like a pack of cards. So you have a lot of vibration in that area. And if you look at the terrain, if you look at the type of soil that is within that area, then there will be a lot of vibration because it's fluid. You have dynamics all around down there. And all those buildings within that vicinity will feel the dynamics. And that's what happened when there was to be the implosion of the Bank of Industries building. I mean, in actual fact, we had to be called in to look at the flow, waves that moves horizontally in that direction. So,
Engineer,
yes.
I wish we had a lot of time to talk about this very important issue, but I must also bring you back to some of the comments you've made, and this is with regards to what has happened. We're looking at deaths in their numbers, and thankfully some have been rescued, but then where do we put this blame in taking responsibility for this disaster?
Well, this is one of the high-rise buildings that has collapsed. Even in number of deaths, well, it's not as serious as that of the synagogue, where over 100 died. But you put the issue, the problem and the challenges on the team. First of all, when you pick a quack to do, you don't call a tailor to do a carpenter's job. And that is where the entire thing begins from. So when you pick a wrong professional to do your job for you, you have, in this particular case, the client appears to be the contractor, because that's what we see on the signboard. How then do you control quality? Then you also have the ministry that oversees all of this. They are assumed to have done their due diligence unless the inquiry is carried out, like the governor has promised. It's very, very premature to pick holes and say it is A or B or C. The investigation has to be done.
This is a good place to leave it. Well, we really look forward to, indeed, that inquiry and other activities on this. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Engineer Raulua Fadayomi, past President, Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
In part two, after the break, President Muhammadu Buhari addresses participants at the Climate Change Summit in Glasgow, Scotland, canvasses financial support for developing countries in achieving global warming goals. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Death toll rises in the Ikoyi building collapse. 20 bodies recovered as Governor Sanwo-Olu suspends General Manager of Lagos State Building Control Agency. President Muhammadu Buhari attends Climate Change Summit in Glasgow, canvasses financial support for Africa. Minister of Power raises hope on more electricity generation for the country. Government inaugurates Ngeru and Kashimbila hydropower projects next month. An Ethiopian government declares nationwide state of emergency as war intensifies in the country. Let's go outside Nigeria, where the president has told delegates at the ongoing climate conference in Glasgow that the outcome of the conference must result in a quick resolution of all outstanding issues on the Paris Agreement rulebook. Speaking to the delegates on the second day of the World Leaders Summit, President Muhammadu Buhari said attaining national and global climate change goals will require adequate and sustained technical and financial support to developing countries. Other world leaders also promised $12 billion to halt and reverse forest loss and protect land rights. Our correspondent in Glasgow, Ayola Kassim, reports.
Leaders of developed countries present here all wanting to show their support for the call to limit increase in temperature. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari told the gathering that attaining national and global climate change goals will require adequate and sustained technical and financial support to developing countries.
Nigeria is not looking to make the same mistakes that have been repeated for decades by others. We are looking for partners in innovation, technology and finance to make cleaner and more efficient use of all available resources to help make for a more stable transition in energy markets.
The British government, which is hosting the meeting, announced the funding package to include guarantees to the World Bank and the African Development Bank to provide £2.2 billion for investment in climate-related projects in Africa and India. The UK's Development Finance Institution, CDC, will commit to deliver more than £3 billion of climate financing for green growth over the next 5 years. While the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office-backed Private Infrastructure Development Group will also commit more than £210 million in new investment to back transformational green projects in developing countries.
We cannot and will not succeed by government spending alone. We in this room can deploy hundreds of billions, no question. But the market has hundreds of trillions, and the task now is to work together to help our friends to decarbonize, using our funds, the funds we have in development assistance, and working with all the multilateral development banks so that in the key countries that need to make progress, we can jointly identify the projects that we can help to de-risk so that the private sector money can come in.
More than 100 leaders also pledged to halt and reverse deforestation and land degradation by the end of the decade. The Glasgow leaders' declaration in forest and land use will cover forests totaling more than 13 million square miles.
Conserving our forests and other critical ecosystems is an indispensable piece of keeping our climate goals within reach, as well as many other key priorities that we have together.
World's richest man and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos announced $2 billion pledge to support nature restoration. And many more government and private initiatives to help reach the 2030 emissions target are expected to be announced in coming days. From the venue of COP26 in Glasgow, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
Back in Nigeria, the Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliyu, is giving assurance that the Zungeru and Kashimbila hydropower projects will be ready by December this year. Mr. Aliyu stated this when he appeared before the Senate Committee on Power to defend his ministry's 2022 budget proposal.
Zungeru we scheduled to commission Zungeru in December 2021. So we are still working with the December deadline. They have some issues, some challenges of security. They have where they call the tripartite point, where they needed a certain number of security, but they were only able to get half of that. So the full complement, they want it to be complemented by the military, so that the workers can stay and work on shift and sleep on that tripartite point. But as it is now, they don't do that. They have to move away because of insecurity. So this one is also affecting the timeline.
We take you over to our Abuja studios where Magbe Ogun Yusuf has some more stories. Hello, Magbe.
Hello, Millicent. We kick off right here in the FCT where 2 professors, a senior lecturer and 3 members of their families have been abducted from the University of Abuja staff quarters in the early hours of today. The chairman of the Uni Abuja chapter of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, said the kidnappers came into the staff quarters at past midnight, shooting sporadically before abducting their victims. And while the FCT Commissioner of Police says a combined team of security operatives are already on the trail of the kidnappers.
Yes, Unarmed civilian guards manned the gate of the University of Abuja staff quarters in Giri village in Gwagwalada Area Council of Abuja, where 6 people were kidnapped by gunmen on Tuesday morning. This huge crowd of security personnel and sympathizers inside the quarters is unusual at the once serene environment. Residents say the peace in this neighborhood was interrupted when the gunmen invaded the area, shooting sporadically for hours before abducting 6 people, including 2 professors, a senior lecturer, and 3 members of their families.
At about 12:30, the bandits invaded the Giri staff quarters and took away university staff, where some are members and their relations. The number of people kidnapped, there are 6 in number.
A professor and his son were kidnapped from here after the invaders forced their way into the house.
They came in to our house through the back window, and they broke the window, came in, asked us to bring what we have. They took some of our gadgets and went away with my dad, my junior brother, and I was with them too. However, after some distance inside the bush, they decided to release me with one of us, because we were about 8 of us that took. So they went with 6 and released 2 people. We had to find our way back home.
Another eyewitness says it took some time for the invaders to get into the house, and upon entry, they angrily caused huge destruction as seen here, before the victim, who is a senior lecturer, was taken away.
They tried to open, it was a bit difficult for them, but they gained entry. When they now entered, so they dragged them out and started beating him. That they beat him up mercilessly. And actually my husband has not been strong for this now. He was even supposed to start his medication, but he said he wanted to finish whatever he had with the VC before he can settle down and treat himself.
The University of Abuja is 45.4 kilometers and approximately 45 minutes drive to the Abuja city center. There is also a military battalion around the campus, yet eyewitnesses say the invaders operated for over an hour unchallenged. However, both the FCT Commissioner of Police and the management of the University of Abuja are optimistic that the victims will be rescued.
When we received the distress call of sporadic shooting in the university quarters here, Giri, so we mobilized, we sent reinforcement, we called our sister agency, 176 Battalion, who also came to our aids, together with the internal security of the university. They've been on the trail of the hoodlums and those kidnapped, and they are on their trail. By the grace of God, we will rescue them.
Issue of security is not thing that you just speak publicly, but what I just want to assure you is that we are pursuing them, and we are not going to give up until we get them.
The trauma, pain, and anxiety left behind by the kidnappers is real, and for the families of the victims, not promises, but the safe and quick return of their loved ones will ease their pain.
When the news at 10 returns, Inspector General of Police Usman Alkali Baba assures Nigerians that absolute peace will return to all troubled zones. Do join us again. Welcome back. As concerns grow over the security situation across the country, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, is giving Nigerians the assurance that the police are ready to ensure that absolute peace returns to all troubled zones. Mr. Alkali Baba was speaking in Lagos at the opening ceremony of a joint capacity building workship for senior security officers in Lagos and Ogun states. He also said that some suspects have been arrested in connection with the siege to Justice Mary Odeni's home in Abuja.
For now, we've been able to arrest the perpetrators of this act, and we are investigating to unravel the circumstances surrounding the invasion or the siege or whatever that happened. In the University of Abuja, we had bandit attacks and some persons have been kidnapped, and the police and other security agencies, including the military, are working hard to ensure that those abducted are being released. Abba Kyari has not yet resumed office, and that is the update.
And speaking directly to the siege, whose investigation outcome Nigerians await, the Apex Court has broken its silence on the matter. It has described the siege to the home of one of its own, Justice Mary Odili, as an impunity taken too far, uncivilized and a shameful show of primitive force on an innocent judicial officer. In a statement, the Apex Court expresses sadness, adding that the incident brings back painful and ugly memories of the October 2016 midnight invasion of the homes of their respective justices, with no satisfactory explanations as to the true motive behind such brazen assault on their collective sensibility. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has commenced a full-scale independent investigation to unravel the true perpetrators and their motives, while urging the Inspector General of Police to carry out a discreet investigation and make its findings known to the public as soon as possible. And that's all from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Millicent, for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Margaret. Well, still staying with the siege on Justice Mary Odili's home, the body of senior advocates of Nigeria are insisting that the government must unearth those behind the siege on her home by yet to be identified security operatives on Friday, 29th October. Led by their chairman, Adegboyega Awomolo, the body met the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, and the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanka Mohammed, behind closed doors to register their displeasure over the incident. They insist that it shouldn't be politicized and swept under the carpet, as they express concern over the safety of judicial officers.
When judges' lives, when judges' career, when judges' safety, when their courage, when their independence is threatened, then democracy is also threatened. We have had a very nice, a good time with the Honorable Attorney General, and he has very sincerely opened up to us as his colleague. He's an SCN like us, and is our pride at the inner bar. He has explained to us that the federal government, neither the federal government nor the Office of Attorney General has anything to do with the incident. That he has issued press release, he has also issued a letter to the Inspector General of Police for a thorough investigation. In fact, as demonstration of his sincerity, he said he is open to be investigated if there is any information that connects him.
And to other stories, some notable women in business, management and public service have been honored at the iconic Legends Ball of the Wimbers Group in Lagos. They include the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Folake Solanke, and the Vice Chairman, Channels Media Group, Mrs. Shola Momo. The non-governmental organization Wimbers prides itself as a catalyst for raising the status and influence of women in Nigeria and beyond. Our correspondent Bukola Samuel Wemimo reports.
The hall is full of glamour, color, style and elegance. It's also full of power and achievement, qualities never in short supply, where purposeful women gather to celebrate. And this year, Wimbys is marking its 20th anniversary in grand style and with a noteworthy theme, celebrating legacy. The Legends Ball is the first in a series of pre-conference events earmarked to commemorate the 20-year-old not-for-profit organization.
Our list of legends include remarkable women that have broken barriers in different industries. Through their boldness and their work, they have positively impacted the lives of so many women.
Women achievers who made it into the Legends Honours list include the first woman and first African to serve as the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, first female senior advocate of Nigeria, Chief Folake Solanke, first Nigerian woman to be appointed Minister of Industry and who chaired the new Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, Dr. Nike Akonde, first female president of the Nigerian Academy of Engineering, Engineer Joanna Maduka, and Nigeria's first female vice-chancellor, Professor Grace Alele Williams, the vice-chairman, Channels Media Group, and first female co-founder of a television station in Nigeria, Mrs. Shola Momo, is also in the Legends Hall of Fame. The award, received by her representative and Assistant General Counsel of Channels TV, Mrs. Adiola Olumeyo, is in recognition of her phenomenal achievements in visual media.
Congratulations.
Other legends acknowledged include chairman and publisher of the Guardian newspapers, Lady Alex Ibru, while Nike Okundai and Onyeka Onwenu were honored in the fields of arts and entertainment.
I'm so proud of the women, the body of women who are great achievers, and for them to honor those of us who are contributed today, to give us the award today, is a great honor.
A night of felicitations in the most convivial atmosphere, Wimbies has rewarded excellence and achievement. It has also certainly lit a flame of inspiration for the next generation to carry. Bukola Samuel Wemimo, Channels Television News.
And time for some business news. Here's Anne Wilder.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin with an announcement from the Nigeria Investment Promotion Council announcing an $8.9 billion investment inflow into the country for the third quarter of this year. The acting executive director of the NIPC, Mr. Emeka Ofo, who was speaking at a news conference in Abuja, explains that 33 projects were tracked under the same period across 8 states, with the month of August recording the most. Top sectors that attracted investment for the third quarter include manufacturing, electricity, gas, as well as ICT. The federal government says it has attracted over 250 billion naira in 7 years through its sugar policy roadmap under the Backward Integration Program. In a statement, the Executive Secretary of the National Sugar Development Council, Mr. Zach Adedeji, says that progress has been made in the implementation of the Nigeria Sugar Master Plan, a 10-year plan aimed at revitalizing the sector and making the country a net exporter of sugar. According to him, a new investor, Kia Group Africa, has completed the acquisition of the defunct Nigeria Sugar Company in Kwara State, seeking to produce at least 300,000 metric tons of sugarcane and generate 46 billion naira revenue by the year 2027. The Kia Group joins existing industry players like the Dangote Group, Boa Group and the flour mills to drive the backward integration program, an indication of the government's readiness to build a globally competitive sugar industry that will boost local economy and, of course, create jobs. Let's head to the domestic market where it made a rebound today in the trading session. Laddie Williams has the details for us.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The equities market is on the move again as it sustained gains observed at intraday and reversed some of the losses incurred in yesterday's trading session. The All-Share Index rose slightly by 0.09%, taking the index back to the 42,000 level and adding about 19 billion naira to the market capitalization. However, trading activity is still mostly in the red as volume and value traded further declined at the close of today's session. The banking sector took the major hit today, was down 1.51%, and this largely due to decline in Tier 1 stocks like FBN Holdings, Zenith Bank, and GTCO. The financial sector saw the highest movement in volume of stocks traded, with UBA topping the chart followed by FBN Holdings and Zenith Bank, while Linkage Assurance led 10 gainers. Not a bad comeback for a second trading day of the week. Let's hope the market continues on its bullish trajectory amidst profit-taking. And that's the stock market report for Tuesday. I'm Ladi Williams. It's back to you.
Thank you, Ladi. Well, let's see how other major markets around the world fared at the close of business. And that's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawodo. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Millicent.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Anne. And Channels Television is still keeping tabs on the rescue efforts of the collapsed building site in Ikoyi. Our correspondent is live for us there, Olu Phillips, with an update. Hello, Olu.
Last 24 hours has been a very dark period for Lagos State, Millicent. I must tell you, when we started this morning with just 4 deaths and 5 survivors, we had hoped that the pendulum would swing this way in terms of survival. But I can tell you authoritatively that as we speak now, there has been 20 deaths and 9 survivors, and the work is still ongoing, and we are hoping that maybe there could be some survivors more. It's a bleak one. But this is what it is. So far, excavators and earth-moving machines, they are now cutting away the debris, hoping that as this goes on, emergency can be also brought to people who may be rescued. The people who also thronged here earlier in the day, hoping to find their loved ones, have all departed, leaving workers and first responders to do their job. We have them all across the NEMA, the Lagos State respondents, response and all of that. It's a difficult situation that we have here. And I asked the Deputy Governor earlier today what's going to happen to the other 2 buildings, and he tells me that an integrity test will be conducted, and hopefully when that is done, a decision will be taken around the 2 buildings, Millicent. I have the NEMA director for safety and search and rescue here, Millicent.
All right, Olu Phillips there with the latest. Still lots of hopes and prayers for the operations there. Of course, Channels Television will continue to bring you updates. Well, let's go over to the Ethiopian government declaring a 6-month nationwide state of emergency as war intensifies in the country. The announcement comes days after the Prime Minister urged citizens to take up arms to defend themselves against the TPLF. Simon Pusey has more in international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. More than 100 world leaders have promised to end and reverse deforestation by 2030 in the COP26 Climate Summit's first major deal.
No combate à mudança do clima, sempre fomos parte da solução.
Brazil, where stretches of the Amazon rainforest have been cut down, was among the signatories. The pledge includes almost £14 billion of public and private finance.
Today, I'm pleased to announce
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos also pledged $2 billion through his Bezos Earth Fund for land restoration in Africa. While the Russian president isn't present at the conference, Vladimir Putin did appear in a pre-recorded video saying Russia supported the joint declaration on forests and land use at the talks. The US has also announced measures to prevent millions of tons of the greenhouse gas methane from entering the atmosphere.
My fellow leaders, I'm honored to represent the United States.
The measures will target methane leaking from oil and gas rigs across the US. It is one of the most potent greenhouse gases and responsible for 1/3 of current warming from human activities. Over 80 countries have joined the initiative to cut emissions of the gas by at least 30% by 2030, compared with 2020 levels. However, China, Russia and India are not among the countries. And a familiar face among the politicians and world leaders, although better known due to Hollywood than the environment. Leonardo DiCaprio was mobbed as he walked through the corridors of the COP26 conference. There was no indication he would be in Glasgow for the summit. However, he does describe himself on social media as an actor and environmentalist. At least 15 people have been killed and 34 wounded when 2 explosions followed by gunfire hit Afghanistan's biggest military hospital in Kabul. The explosions took place at the entrance of the 400-bed Sardar Mohammed Daud Khan Hospital in central Kabul, and security forces had been sent to the area. Italian aid group Emergency, which runs a trauma hospital some 3 kilometers from the site of the blast, said 9 of the wounded had been brought in so far. The global COVID-19 death toll has reached the 5 million milestone. That's according to data released by Johns Hopkins University. Global COVID-19 deaths hit 1 million back in September 2020. Since then, 4 variants of the virus, Alpha, Beta, Gamma and Delta, have helped spread the disease around the world. Final voting is taking place to elect Virginia's next governor in a knife-edge vote that is being seen as a verdict on Biden's presidency so far.
It is breathtaking, his lack of knowledge about Virginia.
Democrat Terry McAuliffe is betting the state's leftward trend in recent years will carry him to a second term in the governor's mansion.
We get to tomorrow decide the future of our Commonwealth.
But he's facing a spirited challenge from businessman Glenn Youngkin, a political novice who has energized Republican voters in recent weeks. Polls suggest the 2 men are deadlocked and the race is too close to call. Meanwhile, counting is underway in South Africa after citizens cast their votes in the local government elections. The vote is being seen as a test to the popularity of the ruling ANC party. The party had around 46% of votes cast on Tuesday morning, with about 22% of votes counted nationally. That's according to the state broadcaster. The party got around 54% of the vote in the last municipal polls in 2016. Siamese twin girls from Cameroon are both doing well after being separated in a hospital in Turkey.
No more trips. Like, seriously.
Elizabeth and Mary were born in July last year, conjoined at the waist. Their family had to campaign for funds to undertake the complex procedure to separate them.
After, I just leave everything in the hands of God.
But at a press conference earlier, their mother spoke of her joy when she realised how well the operation had gone and said she thanks God for the successful separation. And finally, the living and dead have reunited throughout Mexico during the Day of the Dead celebrations. In the annual event, families decorate the graves of their deceased relatives with flowers, candles, food and drink. The Day of the Dead tradition blends Catholic rituals with the pre-Hispanic belief that the dead return once a year from the underworld. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. And let's go over now to sports news. The Nigerian Football Federation have appointed coach Justin Madugu and coach Edwin Okon into the technical crew of the Super Falcons, in line with a recent resolve to rejig the team's technical group. Madugu was appointed the team's new first assistant coach, while Edwin Okon will be the chief scout for the squad. And Tottenham Hotspur have appointed Antonio Conte as their new head coach following the sacking of Nuno Espirito Santo. Conte has signed an 18-month contract worth £15 million with an option to extend following a successful talk with the club's hierarchy in London on Monday. And that sports news is back to Millicent with the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Victor. And the main news again. The death toll in the building collapse in Lagos today rose to 20 and 9 people were rescued. The Lagos government queried the building's integrity and suspended the general manager, Lagos State Building Control Agency, with immediate effect. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night. Stay safe.